This is Maharajas of Skill, a podcast where we go behind the scenes and talk to founders who are demolishing the myths around building and scaling a big business in India. These are the stories that have shattered the assumptions around Indian consumers and are changing the game completely. I am Krishna Jonakadla, serial entrepreneur, co-founder of Flit, the fashion locator in town, and startup mentor, bringing you these stories. Okay, on Sankranti Day in Bangalore, 2021, all the people that are manufacturing vaccines are wondering, should we even manufacture a vaccine? Because newspaper headlines are actually screaming, saying efficacy of the vaccine testing might actually be defeated because not many people are actually contracting COVID. I'm so super thrilled to see that maybe herd immunity is actually kicking in. And it's a great day to speak to Prateek of LearnApp. I love what Prateek is doing with LearnApp. I've always held this notion, and for those listeners that have heard our earlier episode, I've said, what is the fruit on the tree principle? If you want to be a doctor, actually go to speak to someone who's actually become a doctor. So Prateek has actually scaled that principle and built LearnApp. Let's hear from him. Prateek, awesome to have you on the show today. So tell us a little bit about yourself, what you're doing right now and where you're right now.
Hey dude, Krishna, thank you for inviting me to this. Really nice to be here. I love the name of your show, Maharajas of Skill. But I hope can live up to that expectation. So we started about 2 years ago. Like Krishna said, it's called LearnApp. Basically, it's a platform that does three things. You get a leader to come and teach. So a practitioner who's actually either built the industry from scratch or actually done amazing stuff to get the industry somewhere actually teaches. So it's based on insight. It's based on actionable stuff that you can do versus theory. Second, the problem with online is that it's so damn distracting, right? You see something and you get a WhatsApp here. So how could you solve for that? I love quality. And I think a lot of Indian startups or older Indian companies don't focus on quality. So our video courses are built beautifully. I think we have great cameras, sound design, storytelling, and we'll spend a lot of time on that. So we have the highest completion rates because of that. So movie-like video quality. And the third thing is that it costs super low. So people pay 500 rupees a month to access 200 courses all around trading, investing, and business. And you have these amazing people teaching. So, let's change education with this, I guess, Krishna.
Oh my God, dude, what are you telling me? Something like this is really possible? I mean, all the stuff I read out there actually gives me the impression that something like LearnApp couldn't exist or shouldn't be doing stuff like that. You're actually telling me this is actually possible?
Yeah, I mean, we to be honest, we never started off with this vision, right? I think all entrepreneurs start by saying, hey, I had this North Star and I walked towards it and scaled this mountain. The truth is we walked towards the mountain, got in mud, came out, ate seaweed, went through the jungle. And then one day looked down, we're like, oh, we're on top of a tiny hill. And Krishna's asking, how did you get on this hill? And I'm here to tell you how we got on the hill.
Interesting. I think this is going to be one hell of a session. And I think both of us are going to have fun. The previous one was with an absolutely fantastic entrepreneur. She did a terrific job. Rashi of Heads Up for Tails. This only seems to be getting better. So we'll jump into LearnApp in a second. And I want you to talk about the scale that you have achieved, the numbers that you are pushing right now. But before we do that, let's get into your own background a little bit. How did you end up being an entrepreneur? What was the spark and the source for LearnApp?
Right. So I guess I'll quickly go through my background so everyone has a little context. So I was born in Abu Dhabi, then we moved to Africa, then we moved to Singapore, and then Malaysia, and then came to India. And at that point, I was supposed to get into grade 10. Krishna, I want to say something?
No, go ahead.
I was supposed to get into grade 10, but I got 2 years pushed back, obviously, because of all the moving. And I came to India and mom, we were in Delhi. And no one gave me admission into class 8 because मुझे हिंदी नहीं आती थी. I couldn't speak in English, Hindi. I couldn't write in Hindi, and they said I'll spoil the 10th exam boards. So dad said, beta, I'm opening a brokerage account with you with the ICICI Direct. It was back then, 3-in-1 account. And I opened the account. I was 17 and I started to trade, and I still trade today. So that's a brief history.
Holy mother! So born in born in Abu Dhabi, and eventually went to Africa. Africa is a continent, dude. In case you're mistaking it for a country.
So it's Tanzania, a place called Dar es Salaam, which is the capital.
Yeah. Terrific airport, right?
It's easier to say Africa than Dar es Salaam, but
Dar es Salaam is a terrific city with a great airport and everything, if I'm not mistaken.
Absolutely, and it's not a desert, guys. Tropical, you get amazing fruits. It's an amazing country. So yeah.
Well, wasn't it called Zanzibar before?
No, so yeah, that's right. So there's a place Zanzibar near it, and that reminds me of my school lunch. I used to have Zanzibar mix. You guys should search it. There's no African food in the world. Maybe that's an idea for a startup.
Come on. My neighbors in Texas, when we used to live there, they were from Ethiopia, and then
right.
You know the funny thing is they would come out for lunch or dinner a few times, and they would tell us Ethiopian food is so close to Indian food, and it's got a lot of, and Ethiopia is the if my memory of coffee history serves me right, Ethiopia I think is where coffee was born, one of the oldest places where coffee was actually a social drink, and even today I think some of the world's best coffee comes from Ethiopia, and they were a very advanced civilization at one point in time. So they used to tell me Ethiopian food is very close to Indian food. So Africa, I think there are a few cuisines, I suppose. I have to claim ignorance here. I don't know a lot about that continent, but there are a few countries. So how was life there? It must have been pretty exciting.
No, it was great, right? I mean, as a kid, you don't know the difference between all of this, right? So, I mean, I was in school, a van used to pick us up, we used to go to school, we used to attend, we used to come back, just like everything else. And I feel when you're abroad, the feeling of Indianness just comes out, right? They're like, "Nay, we have to be more Indian than people in India. We have to wear kurta pajama, and people in India are wearing jeans, but people abroad are like Diwali ka puja kar rahe. So we were the same, right? And there's just so many Gujaratis in Dar es Salaam, right? So I think that was a great place. Made great friends. Africans are fantastic people, and they're always happy. They're always laughing. Just like me, I'm always laughing.
Interesting. So there is quite a large Gujarati contingent all over Africa, right? South Africa is the most well-known one, but otherwise, all the trouble that they had to go through because of Idi Amin in Yemen, those are all well chronicled. The funny thing is, I have a friend, his wife is actually born and raised in Madagascar.
Oh,
she's from that island, and Timbuktu, which is the place she's from, is quite close to Timbuktu. It sounds funny, and I would, as a child, you would grow up people referring Timbuktu in all kinds of phrases, and lo and behold, one day I actually have a friend whose wife is actually from a place closer to Timbuktu, right? And they own an estate close there, apparently a pretty wealthy family, and from Africa to Singapore. Right?
That's right.
What's with all the traveling?
So my mother, she was a principal, and she used to basically move when she used to get an offer to start another school. I would say that she'd probably be like a school startup specialist now that I think about it. Because Africa, she started a school, and then Singapore, she started GIIS, if you remember, Global Indian International School, if you've heard of that. The first version of that started in Singapore, which is the first Indian school she created. Of course, we weren't investors or anything. Mom was the principal, and there were other people who created, who did the financial backing and stuff. So, I mean, what do you think would happen, Krishna? Like, we're in Africa, and mom's like, "Hey, we have this opportunity in Singapore." I'm like, "Great, let's go." So we moved to Singapore.
My God, she was a global citizen much before anyone else. And these aren't essentially roles that you would think of. Some time ago, somewhere in the 80s, when there were a lot of white-collar people in India who had the education, but the Indian economy never offered. I've heard of dentists and architects go to the Middle East or maybe places like Libya, Lebanon. But as an educator, this is the first time I'm hearing. She must be quite an adventurous lady.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think I get grit, determination, perseverance, all these things from her. Like she suffers from migraine, for example, where she would vomit, it's that bad, and she would still get up and go to office every single day. And I would say, how do you do that? And she would say, you got to do what you got to do. And I hope she's watching this someday and she's proud, but that's what I learned from her.
Talk about work ethic. I mean, and the weird thing is she's a principal, right? So at least back then, I'm sure she was one of the older, let's discipline makes everyone great. Although that is timeless advice kind of lady. So if you don't show up, you can't expect others to actually have the same discipline, right? So what about dad?
So dad's in the army, and he retired a colonel. And so when we came to India, that's when I met him. My mom remarried. So I met dad later in life.
I see.
But I mean, it's the reason I'm here today is because of dad. Because I mean, just 2 quick points, right? Like he actually committed his entire pension and gave it to me and said, you'll trade with this despite me not knowing how to trade. And he said, if I trust in you, there's no reason for you to not trust yourself. He's like, if you can have confidence, your confidence will compound over the next 10 years. I'll wait, you'll figure it out. I mean, who does that? So my dad said I should pick up trading and pushed me to it. It wasn't because I was this great Steve Jobs, this thing, visionary, trading will be the future. I was just a clueless kid, man. And just my parents were superstars.
Interesting. That is a place where the two of us have something in common. My dad was a basic government employee. My dad was a happy-go-lucky chap.
Right.
He was an engineer and he was working for the government. And I never saw a streak of ambition in my dad. Right. So I don't mean that disrespectfully or anything, but he was just that. Yeah. And I still remember after becoming a chartered accountant, qualifying, I saw this company for a person that had 10 years less experience than my father. They were paying 10 times the salary that my dad was making at that point in time. So I happened to know the CFO, and I told my dad, you know what, I know the CFO of this company. I know you'll do an awesome job here. Why don't you go join there? He said, no, I'm happy with what I'm doing, where I'm doing. And then I was, I think, 21 back then. For the world of me, I would ask, how in the hell can a person not be ambitious? And I would ask my dad, I'm showing you a path to 10x salary next month. He said, no, someday you'll understand. And it's been 22 years or 21 years hence, I still haven't understood it. But that was my dad. He was happy-go-lucky. He said, gaadi aati hai. Well, that was not the defining aspect of his life. I'm in a stable job. I love the people that I'm working around. I'm cool. Okay. If you are ambitious, go do whatever you want. I'm not going to stop you. And but the result of him working in a government job meant that we literally, and he was not a, let's earn under the table kind of a guy. He never knew that kind of stuff. As a result of which, we never had excess money at home. There's no forget discretion. Yeah. Even the ones that are indiscretionary, you don't have money to spend for it. But
that's such a blessing, right? I mean, when you know what you don't have, then you know what you want, right? I mean, that's such a blessing now that you look back.
So my mom, out of the money that he used to give her for household expenses, she would save 200 rupees, 300 rupees. And then she started subscribing to these primary IPOs.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
So she would say, I don't want a lot, maybe 50 shares. That's all I want. So today she holds shares in TVS Motor Company, and her original investment is 500 rupees. Today that is worth 5.5 lakhs.
Do you know how many IPOs she invested in?
I think somewhere around 12. That's it. After that, she didn't have money.
So dear listeners, here's our first lesson for our podcast, right? Whenever it comes to money or anything you're trying to do, I think out of 10, 20, 30 trades or investments that you make, only 1 or 2 are going to make 99% of the wealth. The same is true for companies as well. So if you are running 20, 30 experiments within your startup, trying to figure out how to get product market fit, how to get conversion, how to get whatever your objective is, it's only iteration which is going to solve that. And that's exactly what Krishna's mother did. She spread her money to 12 or possibly more, I'm guessing 15, 20 IPOs, and one of them turned out to be TVS, and that was the home run.
Actually, more than one, to be honest. So there is Maruti, there is TCS. So she was very calibrated in what she invested in.
So she was super smart then.
Yeah. So the reason I'm giving you that background is she was the one who said, hey, there is something called as wealth making for people like us. Because if for a government employee, real estate, which is a source of wealth, is not really an option. How will you buy these large pieces of land? Yeah. She said, this is the way. So the result of that was when I was around 16, I'd saved up about 4,000 or 5,000. So all the money that your relatives come home and then give you, I never used to spend it. So I put together 4,000 or 5,000. Funny thing is, when I was in 12th grade, there was a point when my mom needed 2,000 rupees and she borrowed 2,000 rupees from me. So, so I took that 5,000 and then I started trading.
Really? I didn't know this.
So back then there was something called as the OTC, Over-the-Counter Exchange of India.
Yeah.
So the OTC desk for Bangalore was closer to my home. It was on the way to work, and on the way to college, and then after I joined work, it was on the way to work. There was a incredible guy called Ram Prasad, very sweet chap. I was all of 16, 17, or maybe around 17. I would sit down, and this chap would explain the nuances of trading. Okay, settlement ka matlab ye hai. Margin, this is what it is. And I told him, Ram Prasad, I have 5,000. You take this 5,000. And how should I actually do this? He said, don't settle, just trade.
Okay.
T+4, right? You have 4 days. T+4. Whatever you buy on a Monday, you have to settle on a Friday. So he said,
you don't have to give the money.
You don't have to pay. So he said, you have 5,000. So you do a margin. You do margin-based trades. I'll support you.
Okay.
And then I would go sit down at that OTC desk. I would bunk a couple of classes and then go sit at OTC desk. I would see people who would come sit in front of terminals and say, okay, buy ITC 100 or sell ITW C0 200 or Bhuvalka Industries 300. And I would see all of that. And I would see people who were rich as well. Poor coffee plantation. That man would say, okay, buy 5 lakhs of X and 6 lakhs of Y. And even while having lunch, that fellow was supposedly very rich. He would come in a Maruti 800 and he would have lunch in front of the terminal. I said, right. What bloody life is this? I don't want a life like that. So the OTC, over-the-counter exchange owner, was a lady called Sunita. So Sunita and Ram Prasad, two sweet people. So that's when I started trading. But I soon realized that after about 2 or 3 years, I think I'd made about 2 lakh rupees back then. A lot of money for a youngster, for a kid. And I took that 2 lakhs, 1999, I'm sitting in front of a trading desk and all this heady days of the .com era. Rolta, there is an Indian company called Rolta.
Yeah.
And everybody was gaga about this company. I had not bitten the .com bug. It hadn't bitten me yet. So I'm like, okay, I sat in front of the terminal and all these numbers started. Rolta, it was 129. The previous day it was 119. The following day I'm sitting in front of the terminal, 129. And then in front of me it went up to 139, 133, 135, 139. And he said, this is going to go to 400, 200, 250. Put all your 2 lakhs in right now. And before I could think, it became 169. I committed the money. And 2 days later, it went up to 199. And then it started falling.
Did it stop falling, Krishna? Is the question.
you know where it came down to? It came down to 46 rupees.
Wonderful.
I was underwater. And I said, nothing doing. I think the company is solid. Looks like they have revenues.
Trading, or this was you had paid upfront, or were you margin?
I had to take delivery. By the time the settlement cycle happened, the stock had cratered, right? So I had to take delivery, and then I took delivery, and then I held on to it. So eventually I held on to it for 2.5 years. So my 169 rupee cost share became 475. And I made 3 times the money. The beauty of it was at that time capital gains didn't exist. I took all of that money and I paid for my wedding from that.
Oh wow, that's quite a story.
So anyway, hey, it's starting to look like it's my interview and not yours.
No, happy to hear.
So that's it's a long common point, but you got into trading at the same time. I got into almost at the same age, but interesting times. But why did your dad say get into trading? What was the background for it?
Ever since I can remember, always, this may sound very bad to say, but it's the truth, right? Ever since I can remember as a child, I always wanted to own a business, actually multiple businesses. Mm-hmm. I would have a notebook where I'd write down what kind of business I was getting into when I was in class 6. Can you just imagine that, right? I remember reading this Tata launches an airline for private jets. And I started to calculate what is the break even for Tata for people to actually lease that airline and make it was fractional ownership like NetJets, and I started calculating how much and I was bad at maths, but I was good at like percentage. So I was like, okay, this is the cost. When do I recover? And it's just always that interested me that I wanted to grow through that. And Dad said, look, we're not rich, we can't like start a business, but what you can do is you can buy 100 rupee share. So the closest I can get my son to business and figuring it out how all this works to the best of my capacity is just starting to trade or invest in the stock market. And he said, you do everything. The only thing I request from you is every day after the markets, at least for 4 or 5 hours, you should be studying about the markets. So that's where I read hundreds and hundreds of books. Thank you, Rapid Share. And if people know what that means, and I would download PDFs and read them, and that's how I learned. And the thing about trading is you have to learn economics, you have to learn technical analysis, you have to learn emotions, you have to learn herd mentality, you have to learn journaling and how percentage works and money management and risk management and all these different things come together. And I had no clue, right? And in school they were teaching environmental sciences. I'm like, I like this better. And I loved reading that, and that's how I got into it. So I think that's what Dad did. So now I do that and run LearnApp. So great.
Oh, awesome. And then the trading, so that's sort of like a main thing that you did for a while?
Yeah, the thing about trading is that you should not be trading every day all the time. And what you have to do is find a system and you trade that system. Maybe in that system, you get 2 to 3 trades a week. You take that for a really long period of time, you'll make money. You will not make money on a monthly basis. So that taught me patience. And so you need to do something else with your time. So once you found a system, I have to take 3 trades a week. What do I do with, 10 hours a day multiplied by 7 days a week, right? What do I do with that? So, start a company. So the first company I tried to start was Night's Cafe with my friends, where we said, okay, we'll try to start a company. And we did everything, dude, except the actual business plan and the actual food. We did the logo, we did the menu, we did all of that. We did the signage outside, the interior lighting, but had no clue how much to price and what we'll be selling. So, and bunch of banks said, we'll fund this for you. Just give us these 4-5 things. We spent 7-8 months on it. And after everything was done, everything was lined up, we went to the bank and the bank said, get out. We're obviously not going to give you money. I to this day, I don't know why they said yes and then said no last minute. But no one gives you money. And then there were 4 other companies after that, Krishna.
Wow.
All around online education. So because I was sort of successful in trading, I thought I'd like to share. And I partnered with a bunch of other people because khud ka capital to tha nahi. And either we didn't align with the owner, or he didn't believe in the work I was doing, or some misalignment happened, or I wasn't doing very well. Like in the case of Trade Academy, which was the 4th version, I think the people who had funded it were Ravi Raghu Srini of Upstocks. So they run Upstocks right now, if you've heard of that.
Yes.
So they funded it. They gave me full reign, but I think I was not as good as I could have been to actually grow that business, and that didn't work out for that reason. And the fifth one is LearnApp, Krishna.
I love your humility. I mean, you're being so candid that they invested in the business. Maybe you were not able to scale it. That kind of candor is quite rare. That humility. 2-3 cheers for that, man.
So I shouldn't get a fifth chance, but but there is.
But you decided to get up again, right? So that's why you have a chance.
I mean, what else do you do, right? I mean, the truth is, people are like, you see those videos on LinkedIn nowadays, right? That this person is running and then he falls down and then he gets up, and of course you'll get up, right? I mean, do you just want to lie there? Of course you'll get up. Like, what else would you do? And I think the excitement of starting something new with what you've learned before, and a good example is Kunal Shah, right? Or even Goai Bibo's Ashish Kashyap. These people will scale their businesses in very short periods of time. And people will say these people scaled it to $1 billion in 3 years. But the truth is, they have 20 years of experience behind them.
That's right.
Right? So if LearnApp scales, it'll be like, oh, we reached XYZ in 3 years, 4 years. But I mean, dude, we've been trying this for a while.
Right.
So I think that's pretty exciting.
So what sort of scale numbers have you hit with LearnApp right now?
So I'll tell you the impressive numbers, then I'll tell you the truth behind them, okay?
So you mean vanity metrics and not non-vanity metrics?
Exactly. So I'll tell you the vanity metrics, then I'll tell you the non-vanity metrics. So I'll tell you the stuff that sounds cool. So because we are stupid cheap, I like to say that I use the word cheap very caringly, but it's very affordable, right? And people are like, so the courses right now cost 30,000 to 3 lakhs in the market. And we're saying 500 rupees, quality 10x better, content 10x better, and 10x so you get 200 courses for 500 rupees a month. So that's like, it's crazy, dumb this thing to subscribe. So we partnered with the right people of where traders, investors already exist, like brokers and banks and websites and fintech companies. And they happily did it because they could offer some value to their users. We got 960,000 visitors on LearnApp, right? So that's almost 1 million who landed. 1.5 lakh people registered, meaning they just gave their email addresses. Now, this is where most startups stop and say, we have 1.5 lakh registered users. Dude, the truth is, how many of them are paying and actually think your service is valuable, right? Now, since we don't have investors to like impress, or we're trying to raise money, we're not doing that. The way we'll raise money is like users will buy a product and we'll scale. So now I'll tell you the non-vanity metrics, the truth. So out of these 1.5 lakh people, about 15,000 people are paying subscribers, and they pay on average about 6,000 rupees.
15,000, 6. Wow.
Yeah. That's basically the business, right? Now, how do we grow from there? So you have multiple channels, and Krishna, no ads. We don't do ads.
Outstanding. If you did ads, to be honest, right now a lot of entrepreneurs think पैसे भी लेंगे, ads भी लगाएंगे, right? So in my opinion, that's actually in some sense a violation of the space that you actually guaranteed to the buyer. It might be a great awesome short-term move where you're saying, okay, let's take this person's attention and then do all kinds of things with it. But if your whole focus is what is the impact that I'm planning to deliver, it is their ability to learn something without distraction, right? So then the lack of ads actually adds to it, right? So before we hit the record button, you remember the distractions that you were talking about. Even when you don't have distractions from the platform, there are enough distractions out there. So for a learning platform, that's amazing. And in fact, I commend you for sharing your numbers so openly. It's a breath of fresh air. I mean, I don't see it. It's fantastic. I don't want to put down the founders that don't. I'm sure they have their own reasons and then pressures. Right. But I still wish the Indian ecosystem gravitated towards actually better transparency, because it helps. It helps one and all, right? So what happens is this person holds back some numbers, which actually means all the people that have participated in that company are in fact a party to that holdback as well. Now, so if there are 10 investors, advisors And this particular founder is saying, okay, it's XYZ, where in reality it is actually 1/10 of XYZ. All the other 10 people who are actually silent or in effect are actually supporting that. Now start radiating that out into the ecosystem, which is why we have what we have, right? So to give an age-old example from Tenali Ramakrishna, who's a court jester in the kingdom of in the court of King Krishna Devaraya in Vijayanagar Empire. So they have the king and Krishna Devaraya and Tenali Ramakrishna have a bet. The king tells Tenali Ramakrishna, my subjects are all very, very honest people, because there's such law and order in his kingdom, right? So Tenali Ramakrishna tells him it is only under certain circumstances. So the king tells him, okay, let's come up, challenge me, and prove me wrong. So there is this experiment where he tells everybody, you have to pour a glass of milk into a large container, and because you're pouring it, everybody's pouring it, we are not going to come and check who poured what. It so happens at the end of that experiment, only about 10% of the people, I don't remember the exact number, 10% of people have actually poured milk. The remaining 90% have actually poured water. As a result, when the king looks at it, it just looks like water. There's hardly any milk in that container, right? So many times we underestimate the impact of the single steps that we take, when that actually becomes pervasive. Because so what you did right now is very, very powerful. But let's go to the beginning. How was it? So you were Trade Desk. Was that the previous one?
Trade Academy. It was called.
Trade Academy. What was Trade Academy about? Was it similar to LearnApp or was it different?
Yeah. Right. So actually, one step before Trade Academy was something called Market Scientist. And basically what Market Scientist was a blog where I would teach people how to trade.
Okay.
And there was this interesting story. I started writing these blogs on how to trade. This is 2013. And I was speaking to Srini from Upstocks. And I said, you should partner us. And he's like, dude, you guys have just started. You've written like 10 articles. Like we're a growing broker. Why would we partner you? And he's totally right. The funny thing is, Srini spoke to me for 1 hour, and I'm sure he was super busy. I don't know why he gave me that time. I did not deserve it. And I said, and I kept badgering him, what do I need to do that you would say, Prateek, I want to partner you? He kept saying that. And he's like, dude, I don't know. Maybe just make videos. No one does that in India. I said, okay, fine. And that's the end of the conversation. Went again with dad, bought a camera, and he said, you need to do lights. I said, where do we get lights? And we had this tube light. We took the tube light, put it on a fatta. That's a piece of wood, tied it with wire. I put it over there and connected my phone as a mic recording, because I knew audio is important. And that's how the first few videos came out. Those videos still exist, Krishna. They have 1 million views. Wow. They're horribly produced. But for some reason, people still like them because maybe the content was good and it was honest. And here's the problem with finance. Everyone's bloody lying. Because to make money in finance, you need to sell a product. Yeah. And the larger amount people put in that product, the more commission you get. Right. That's basically how all finance works. Insurance works like that. Mutual funds work like that. Everything works like that, right? Even old school brokers work like that.
Yeah.
The more money you put in, the more commission you get. So people lie and they overpromise. So you can't trust anyone. So I said, okay, if no one can be trusted, what if we were so honest we would stand out and people would say, hey, this guy sounds very honest and I can verify whatever he's saying. And we would put out links so you can verify whatever he's saying is true. And I think that even today helps us grow because we're like, hey, you can't double your money, but you can get this much percentage if you do this. And people find it absurd, but they like the honesty, and that's why they subscribe.
Awesome. About more than a decade ago, I read a book, a guy called Mark Tier. Okay. He wrote a book called The Winning Investment Habits of George Soros and Warren Buffett. Right? The beauty of that book was he's contrasting two really diametrically opposite investors. Right? Yeah. So Soros is as anti-Buffett as it can get, and he doesn't even invest in the same kind of asset classes that Buffett invests in. And the first chapter of that book is all about demolishing these myths and all the bad habits that people have. So and I've reread that book like 10 times since. Every time I read that book, I learn something new, and it shows my own ability in a new light. So honestly, I'm not surprised. The degree of honesty you have is actually helping. Let me ask you a question. Any idea how much is an average insurance agent's commission on the first year policy premium?
Oh, in percentage, I've heard crazy numbers. I've heard they take up to 50-60%. Is that true?
Starting the very most basic, the bottommost percentage is 42.
Wow, man, that's crazy, man.
And if you are a little bit of an institutional kind of a player, where you have maybe a team of 4 or 5 agents, you are almost like a channel partner of sorts.
60%.
80.
Wow, man.
80. So first of all, the question is, why do you need to? So going back, you're saying everybody's lying, right? So one of the reasons they have to lie is because they need to earn that commission. And
yeah, maybe lying is incorrect. Maybe like over promising, right? Make it shinier than it actually is, so you can buy more of it.
No. I think in many cases, take the ULIP policies 4, 5 years ago, there was blatant lying. I've lost money on. I personally haven't lost. My father-in-law has lost money. So anyway, okay, let's come back, and then from there on to trade.
Right. So market scientists then grew because the videos actually did really well. And then that's when I spoke to them, and we said, okay, we should start off something with upstocks. It was called RKSE back then. So, and we started Trade Academy, which was basically the education arm of that brokerage firm. And the idea was very simple. Prateek Singh would teach how to trade and invest through these videos that people could subscribe to. They were also produced extremely well. And then a lot happened over there, and then we moved to LearnApp. I'll just skip quickly of how LearnApp is a little different.
I want you to dig into that. A lot happened over there a little bit.
I knew you were going to ask that, but basically I think I tried a lot of different ways to grow the company.
Okay.
And it didn't scale as much as it should have because I still didn't know shit. I didn't know how to grow the company. Even though I was given free hand to do whatever I wished. So that I think, but I learned a lot of what not to do over there. But yeah, I mean,
3 or 4 things what not to do you want to talk about?
So first thing is that everyone from your receptionist to your marketing, to your content, to even your freelancers have to have one North Star of why you're doing what you're doing and where you're going. Everyone can't have different answers, right? For example, you can't have the brokerage arm saying open accounts and we saying, no, we want more people watching more videos over the week. Right? You can't have that, right? You have to have one single thing. So we call that alignment. Everyone should be aligned. And as you align and as you grow, if you have milestones, everyone on the team, there should be a way for them to visualize their growth. Because if the company grows and they don't, they will then pull back. Because nowadays for our generation, just having a yearly salary increase is not enough. I think people of our generation are working for comfort, for vision, for growth, and not only security, which I think our parents and our grandparents did. That agar naukri hi mil gayi, wahi bahut hai. I don't think our generation thinks like that anymore, or at least the people that I know don't think like that anymore. There should be more in it, and it's not only money, right? It's also what they're learning, etc. Like they should be fully engaged. That's the first. Another example of what wrong to do is that you have to over communicate with people who are involved, stakeholders, but they may not be running the business. So I don't think I communicated very well to the brokerage arm of how we're going to grow. Third, you should measure everything. We live in, if it's not measured, you're not improving it. So think about your business as this machine, right? You have to acquire users, you have to retain these users, you have to get them to keep coming back and review, and hopefully in the end, refer another user and the cycle repeats. Now for each of these parts of this long train that I described of acquisition, retention, and revenue, and then referral, there may be 10 different parts within it. So I could have Telegram as an acquisition, YouTube as an acquisition, sending emails to the brokerage arm as an acquisition, etc., etc., etc. You have to optimize for each of them. What was the copy like? Did they understand it? Are you really solving a problem for your user? I know people keep saying this, but it's so true. Like, talk to your users every day, and you'll really understand what they want. They don't want shiny video sometimes. They just want the answer to a bunch of questions. And if you can do it in a shiny video, then that's a plus. So I think measuring everything, right, is so important. So now at LearnApp, we measure everything, including usage, and even at what point a person drops off in a video, to know that maybe that portion should not have been created and it is not helping people trade better or invest better. So it also tells us what kind of content to create. So measuring everything really useful. Go ahead, Krishna.
No, go ahead.
So we measure everything a lot. And we can do a whole other podcast on how we measure and decide new content just based on usage, and how people click the share button, how engaging it is. Like, you don't need to talk to your user sometime if you can measure the right things. So we know exactly what to create and how many hits we'll get on our release on Saturday. That's amazing, right? What thumbnail works for an option trader versus an investor, right? Things like that. I think these small things that you're serving the user really, really help. Another thing that I think may help is just having a really good team. I think pehle I used to try to hire as cheap as possible. I hate saying that, but you don't. Throwing people at problems is a very bad way of solving complex problems. The way to solve complex problems is have one good, really smart person solve it with you, versus because this is not a labor problem. It's not a labor arbitrage, right? If you think, for example, I'll tell you a problem that LearnApp is struggling with. Can I tell you that right now?
Sure.
Video doesn't solve ability. So if I watch a video, does that person really gain the ability to do that skill?
Gosh,
right?
Really?
The answer is no, right? So if I see a video on, and this is very anti of what I'm doing, but I'll go ahead and tell you the problem. So if I watch a trading strategy or an investing strategy, will I actually follow it on a daily basis? The answer is no. The only way to actually do that is to have some coach helping you out, or practice the data analytics part every day. And that's what we'll build, Krishna. Like 70-80% of LearnApp in 2021 is going to be just practicing stuff using Excel, using code, using Python on the LearnApp platform versus only video. So we found that out because all our users stopped using LearnApp after 2 months, and we asked them why. And they said, I don't need LearnApp because I'm practicing it in real life. So they should practice it on LearnApp. So, that's how we learn. So
interesting. The other aspect of it, I've always long held the notion, and it's sort of a theory in my mind that there are a lot of other forces that help us learn. Take language, for example. The reason a child picks up, let's say when a child is born, the child doesn't know what is a cow. You have to show the cow and then say, hey, that's a cow. Right? So you show the child once, and then next time the child knows how to recognize a cow. So, and when you actually think about language, when you teach, okay, dhoka means actually deceiving someone.
Yeah.
You don't actually sit down with your child and say, okay, dhoka ka matlab ye hai, iska matlab ye hai. You do not teach your child the meaning of every single word.
Context.
Yeah. So there is the being aspect of it, and there is also the immersion and the environmental aspect of it.
That's right. The immersion aspect.
The reason so many people don't understand that video is not a silver bullet is it is made to look like a silver bullet by the people that want to make it look like a silver bullet, because they'll make money out of it. Right?
Correct.
So their incentives are actually aligned differently. So people should always think, and I'm not surprised. In fact, I think, again, 3 cheers for what you just said. One is you recognizing the limitation of something that you've created. Useful to a certain extent, but unless and until it is augmented by a few other things, it's still not delivering the impact, right?
Absolutely.
So then Trade Academy and then LearnApp. So how did the So you've now come a few ventures, started trading, you're immersed in trading, you're like, I think I know a thing or two about trading, so let me go share with the world. And then and then up stocks, and then I suppose you hit a glass ceiling or some sort of a ceiling in Trade Academy, and then that's when you decided.
Correct.
Did you take a break?
We said that it's not growing as much as we thought, and I was pretty happy in the sense that I get so involved in work. When I had nothing to do the next day, I was like, this is great. I'm going to join MMA. I'm going to pick up tennis. A guitar kharid liya. I was swimming in the morning. It was great. It was liberating. My phone wasn't ringing anymore. It was fantastic. And I was like, okay, got to start something new. What should that be? I'm going to enjoy this process now. And anyway, I said, look, I'm good at education. I want to do that. I couldn't crack it. That doesn't mean I can't crack it. I will. So let me build something new. And this time, of course, I think the difference, Krishna, is I have Swati, Ankush, and Sohail, who are my co-founders. And again, these are the superstars who actually built LearnApp, and which is why LearnApp is growing where it is today. And I think that's made all the difference. The cool thing was the initial idea, and you won't be surprised, was that Prateek Singh will teach all the courses. And I was sitting down in the morning, taking a dump. I hope I can say dump on your Maharajas of Scale podcast. And, my mind was open. And I said, okay, will 100 million users actually benefit from Prateek Singh talking? And the answer was clearly no. Would 1 million? The answer is no. 100,000 maybe. But what would like 100 million users platform look like? And the answer was, and I call this the genie in the framework, right? Assume you have all the resources in the world. Bill Gates, Dadaji hai mere. And, I have everything I need. What would you build? Like, don't limit yourself. What would you build? So to me, my idea was, my understanding was, if a leader comes and teaches, like if Warren Buffett's teaching investing, that holds value. If I can practice and build something on the spot and make mistakes and keep building from there and showcase what I've built, that would be important. If it's super affordable, like a few hundred rupees a month, that would be great. And then I started sketching this out on Photoshop. So in Malaysia, to pay for school, I used to do graphic design for the school, and they would donate our uniforms, etc. So I believe I'm a decent designer because I've been doing it since school, right? So after school, I'd work there and earn some money. So I sketched all this out in Photoshop and put all these faces there. And I said, these people are teaching. And then I went around, I'm like, dude, if these people are teaching, would you subscribe to this platform? And it wasn't soon before I went to the actual faces that I had put on Photoshop. And I removed the face and I put someone else's. And I said, all these guys are going to be on my platform. Would you like to be there? And that's how we got our first 10 mentors. And the person who funded this, and God bless him, is Nitin Kamath from Zerodha, from Gain Matter. And he invested in my business plan, which was the world's worst business plan. I don't know why he invested, but God bless him for trusting in us. And that's how LearnApp emerged, right? It was just sketching and showing people stuff, and we got lucky, and those people came on the platform.
Outstanding, chap. The funny thing is, when we kicked off Maharajas of Scale, it wasn't that I was a novice or anything. I knew a thing or two about startups. I didn't have a brand of my own, but I had complete clarity on what we were going to do with this platform. It was very clear, very similar to what you are saying about bringing all these various practitioners in. It was about the practitioners in the entrepreneurial space, people who are actually making it happen. I don't want I respect somebody who did it like 30 years ago. I think there are definitely lessons that they're likely to offer. There are going to be timeless lessons as well, but we wanted to bring that. And Nitin was the first person to agree to talk to us.
Wow.
And when I met him, I didn't see any airs about him. He was so down. He was so down to earth, and he was. And I had already read a lot about him by then. And Nitin perhaps is one of the few episodes where. And he's not also very widely covered. Right now, Upstocks, because of all the venture funding they've received and all the little competition that's going on in the fintech space and especially in the broking space. Zerodha and Nitin are a lot more in news. But when we began, I think a little over a year ago, Zerodha was known, but not as much as in the news that it's there right now. Right. So he was, I'm not surprised. We spoke about Rain Matter as well on that particular episode and his philosophy. And I told Nitin, it is very interesting because there are very few people, I don't even have a name that comes to my mind where a person that is running that company or is a founder of that company is telling someone like you, let's say LearnApp, there are a few other ventures that he has funded through Rain Matter, right? Everybody guards their customer base very, very like Fort Knox.
That's right.
Nitin's the only guy who's saying, I've got these millions of people.
Yeah.
Not only will I give you access, I'm also going, if I like it, I will also fund you.
Yeah.
Right. It's when it succeeds, everybody's going to turn around and say, dude, this guy is very smart. Right. But I know, having discussed that Rain Matter thing, and I discussed this aspect as well in a little bit of depth, saying that how come you're taking a different approach? And he had a very sensible approach saying, hey, education is necessary and we will always back ventures that we believe add value, because we can't do everything. And it is not even because he can't do everything or they can't do everything, because I think he's who he is. I think 3 cheers to him. So I'm not surprised, and also his honesty and your honesty. I think he saw possibly someone like him with the same level of dedication and sincerity wanted to do it, and maybe that's why he signed the check.
No, I mean, Nitin is something else, man. Like, I don't understand half the things he does, to be honest. I'm like, why are you doing this? And it just does super well, man, because even as an investor, I think he's super successful. Like, if you look at the Rain Matter companies, and I never felt like he went to any investment to make a return. Frankly, I don't think any extra cash is going to change his life, right? He's just doing this to grow the ecosystem, and he says this, he really means it.
He does. That's what I meant.
Yeah. So he genuinely means it.
Genuinely means it, and he's not gone out of his way to define super tough filters for the ones that should be enabled by Rain Matter, right?
Yeah.
So for him, it is about trading. It's about all of those people that are trading. And if he sees direct or even tangential value, he'll back that venture. I've seen that. So then, go on.
I think a summary to what this section, I guess, is mom, dad really supported it. I have 3 co-founders, and Rain Matter supported it. I wasn't alone, which is why this is doing well. If I was alone, it would have probably failed.
So how did the founding team come together?
So we're all very old friends. So I know Swati for 12, 13 years. I know Ankush for even longer, probably 14 years.
Okay.
So Hale, I met at 2015. So 5-6 years there. So I just know them for so long, But it's the same company, Market Scientist is the same company as LearnApp. It's the same private limited company.
Oh, okay. LearnApp is just a different brand.
Yeah, I mean, Market Scientist served Trade Academy as a consultant.
Okay.
And Market Scientist today owns LearnApp. So it's the 2014 journey, which has continued to now.
I see. So, and these people were there in Market Scientist as well?
No, they weren't there. Ankush was there in Trade Academy working in a different capacity. But he was definitely there supporting us. And now, he's a co-founder.
Outstanding. And how did how was the initial start? Rain Matter obviously gives you access to like the user base, and in their newsletters, I think Varsity, isn't it? I think, isn't that what it's called?
That's right. They have an education platform called Varsity.
So Varsity and Kite app, I think there are some places where they introduce the products that they have backed through Rain Matter. That obviously gives you some exposure. But I'm quite certain there is another story in terms of the initial finding traction. So talk about how the initial days were, how was traction back then, and how did the scale journey unfold?
Yeah, so just like you said, right, we're not a fintech platform, so we can't do anything to make Kite more valuable. a lot of other startups do. Like, for example, Smallcase and Sensible and Streak. These companies actually make the trading experience better by becoming a plugin sort of to the tool itself as a tool. LearnApp is not a tool. We're more an education platform. So yeah, we were introduced by them to the world through a blog post. And then after that, I think all founders face this, Krishna, right? So we spend time in stealth mode, building something, imagining what will happen, and when Tiger Global comes, how you'll shake hands with them, etc. And how you'll read the funding news in Economic Times and just be like, it's okay, I expected this, I worked very hard. And you put all of this barood inside this rocket. On launch day, you light it up and you expect the fireworks. But the rocket doesn't light. So, that's what happened with us. We launched. There was, of course, a rocket because a lot of people came in on the first few months. First month was crazy, like so much traffic. People loved it, but there was almost nothing right about the product back then. I don't think the learning was deep enough. I don't think the video was great. I don't think we were explaining things which were missing. We didn't know what course should teach what. So that's called curriculum design. I don't think we frankly knew anything about how to make this world class. We're still learning today, but like in terms of what we do to produce one single course today, is probably use thousands of data points to determine how that course will start and end. Like if I knew that back then, oh wow, that would be amazing. So the first month, to be honest, we got this spike. People subscribed and they never came back. They didn't come back for many, many months. And we couldn't do anything. They had paid for 3 months of access. They would use it for barely a few days and they wouldn't come back. I don't think I've ever said this before publicly in a platform, but this is the truth, right? And so this is where data comes in. How many days did we obsess over our user, why they didn't come back? The answer was 0. We didn't spend any time on that. We didn't measure why. We didn't talk to them. All we were worried about is we'll add more courses, people will come. We'll add more courses, people will come. And that's the wrong question to ask, right? The question is, how do you give sustaining value? So that was that. By Jan 2019, we had burnt almost all of the money that we had raised. And we had about 90 days of money left, probably less, depending on how we would, I'd probably sell my car or something, we'd probably get a little more, but it's probably much less than 90 days. And we had this one option: should we raise money or should we just grow the platform? And clearly adding courses doesn't grow the platform, right? That's not how you grow them. And we said, okay, if you fundraise, it's going to take many months. If it's going to take me 3 months to fundraise and 3 months to grow the business, then I'd rather just, let this ship go down, but we'll put up a fight. We won't be distracted with fundraise. We'll just try to grow the business. And we did 3 simple things, Krishna. We just spoke to, I tried to speak to up to 20, 30 users every day, trying to ask them why they didn't come back, what they want to learn, just tabulated all that data in this huge book. My co-founders did the same thing. We wrote all of this down, found out what they want. We just built it. The users came back. It was that simple. And we did it only once we were pushed to an edge. We started producing the right courses. Communication was better. Support was better. And that's what we learned through this, right? So I hope I didn't skip too much, but that's what we learned in these 2 years.
Just take a little more. I want to provide one perspective. I think because some of that can get lost in what you just covered, right? One aspect is, see, through Rainmatter, when Zerodha introduced you in that, you are already being introduced to the target segment.
Right.
Every single one of them that's actually reading that newsletter or that blog is your potential target user.
That's right.
Now that, for an average startup to come to that moment,
that's true.
Where, first off, most startups, and we are going through our own journey right now in our fintech startup, and I'll talk about that in a while, is I believe there are 2 kinds of products. A product which has universal appeal, or universal usage. A good example of that is WhatsApp, right? Yeah. anybody could use WhatsApp. Any two people. You don't have to be a surgeon, or you don't have to be lawyer. You don't have to be rich. You don't have to be poor.
The target audience is a smartphone user.
Correct. Anybody that has a need to communicate, or obviously has a smartphone. Right now, that's literally 2 billion people.
Yeah.
Right. Now, outside of it, if let's say you are looking at somebody who needs a blood pressure monitor device.
Yeah.
Right.
Very targeted.
Very targeted. Now, the two are vastly different products.
Yeah.
So if it is, let's say, blood pressure monitoring device, or maybe blood sugar monitoring device, we'll define that a little more finely. Now, in the blood sugar monitoring device case, you're actually going after people who are diabetic, who need to monitor their blood sugar. Now, you start defining. So there, the targets, the question for a founder or a person who created the product becomes, okay, where are all the diabetics? What is the best channel that I can reach them? How can I communicate to them about my product?
Yeah.
That's one. Now, in this case, where you have a product that is much more universal in nature, right? Yeah, and even if we go to the extent of a payment app, like a UPI payment app, everybody is on UPI right now. If you launch a UPI-based app, now who's the target segment? Is it the merchant? Is it Kirana stores? Is it supermarkets? Now, what happens with someone who's created a product like that, they have to go through a journey. They have to look at 7 or 8 universes or segments of users and say, go test out each and every segment. Where is the pain point the greatest? And get feedback. And talking to those users is to a certain extent useful, because you may or may not have, if 1,000 people have installed the app per se, you don't know how many of them are really your target segment.
Yeah, true.
As opposed to that, in your case, every one of those people that actually bought or signed up or registered is actually a potential target user.
That's right. So another advantage we had, Krishna, was that from 2014 to now, remember, the Market Scientist channel was still on.
Yes.
And we had like at least 1.5 or 2 million views there, and some 30,000-40,000 subscribers. Right. They could also be funneled who were exactly the audience that we wanted to test our product.
Correct.
And those 30,000-40,000 people, when they landed and found out, because we had a connection that lasted years with them, so 4-5 years, and they knew me, they knew my systems, they knew all of that. So when we actually launched, those users which had been built over many, many years, so again, I think compounding of relationships again helped here.
Right.
That also really helped once we started. So I guess the momentum had started in 2014.
Absolutely. So you have already a curated set, a segmented set. Now you've gone back and said, okay, because of all that trust they signed up, because of the Zerodha trust, because of the Market Scientist trust, and maybe a little bit of brand equity that you had yourself created back then, they've signed up. Now the question is, you've actually I don't want to use the term short-circuited. At this moment, it feels like you were at that moment where you need to focus on saying, okay, you signed up, you didn't get it, what can we change?
Yeah, correct.
Right? Now, in order for an average startup, I think Barry Diller of Interactive Corp, who runs all these fancy online portals, and it's an amazing guy, I think talks about the fact that in most platforms, by the time you come to this point, you've actually spent 6 years with that solution problem.
Yeah, which is what happened here, right? 2014 to 2018, I guess.
Right. So, and then, one little, so now that the listeners have a perspective where once it's a already well-defined product, how to reach, and the challenge here is, it is not possible to define WhatsApp as a doctor-to-doctor messaging app or student to. It is not possible. The moment you define it that way, then you'll have to start adding features relevant to those sets of people, right? You have to keep it at a high level, and you have to keep testing, and somewhere it will work. So those are two nuances. But in your case, I want you to spend a little bit of time and say, when you spoke to those users, what did they say they liked? What did they say they wish existed? And how long did it take you to come to that realization that, yes, I think what they're saying makes sense? And how long did you take to build it?
Right. So I'll get a little technical on this. But basically, there were a few key insights with the users who we spoke to of why they didn't like something. Right. So I'll tell you what sounds fancy. Invest in the market for the next 10 years. Right? This sounds fancy. People can't do it. Yeah, it sounds very nice to say that you should invest for the long term. People don't have the patience. What people really want to know, can I invest in something and get a return in 3 months? Okay. Now, the key question over here was 3 months. Is there a safer way to do it? Yeah, there are bond funds that you could invest in, right? You don't need to take and that's all they really wanted to hear. When people heard 3 months, everyone assumed they want an intraday bank nifty strategy, when all they really wanted is, what is my option apart from a fixed deposit? So we said, okay, we'll start adding some courses on basics of mutual funds and how different durations, what's the risk, how do you quantify the risk? And if one fund goes under, which actually happened last year, a really large fund, how do you not lose your money through building a good portfolio? So we did that. It was with Radhika from Edelweiss. She taught Edelweiss Mutual Fund. She taught all the different categories of mutual funds, how they work, what are the risks, how to create that. And then we taught compounding with Ramdeo, who said, okay, how do you actually grow over a long period of time and compound this? So that solved the user for, okay, my short-term problem is this. How do I solve that? And we built those 3 sets of courses very quickly. And of course, a precursor to that is basics of personal finance. How does insurance work? How does FD work? How do all these different products work? How do I buy life insurance? Because the problem, Krishna, in this case is I'm getting a great salary. I'm a software developer in, say, Bangalore. I have these savings. I don't know what to do with it. Right? It's a very different problem. And we said, okay, take this basic personal finance this thing and we'll solve it for you. And that did really well. So that set, people started sharing in their offices. People started subscribing on their own. They started asking questions. We answered them. So that did extremely well. And there was the great word of mouth. Even today, 95% of all users who land on our website, which is 110,000 active learners today, actually. Vanity metric alert, but 1.1 lakh monthly active learners. They come because someone told them on Google Analytics, they're all direct consumers. They type in LearnApp, or they've come through email or through WhatsApp or Twitter, one of these social channels. They actually click. So we think they're referral. So that worked really well for us. Then we said, okay, what does the trading community want? And the trading community said, we want to learn options. They were very specific. We learn options, bank nifty, should be intraday or swing. So they had these specifications and all of them said the same thing. We created this set of 5-6 courses. The problem with these courses is it's high risk. Extremely high risk, right? You're trading intraday bank nifty, it's high risk. So we created these strategies which only had a few trades a month. It was super low promise of returns, like the back test that we call was very low compared to the industry, right? Much higher than FD and mutual fund, obviously, but like tens of digits. And people said, no, why can't I double my money? And we said, no, because you lose your money in that same time. And we explained that. And people loved that set. That went viral amongst users also. And finally, the last piece was, how do I find you? People weren't finding us. So we went to multiple brokers, websites. They all talked about us. And we said, hey, we'll teach them how to trade better, invest better. Hopefully they'll use your fintech product a little longer. Because I think I heard a person blows his account in 3 months of opening it. Can you imagine that, right? So that's my market over there. Okay, I don't want you to blow your account. Let me tell you how to safely do it. Right? And I think we just solved for these different personas that we created. And we said, okay, how can we make their life easier? Even though we'll say stuff that they would not like to hear. And I think the viral coefficient, right? People talking about it was very high. And we just basically tabulated it and created a series of courses based on that. And that's all we did. There was no magic bullet. Like that's all we did.
Outstanding. I mean, the level of depth in what you spoke about is phenomenal, isn't it? Because the normal and when I contrast this with what you said, which is this is not stuff that video doesn't create ability, right? Now what you're actually doing is in effect creating a context beyond the lesson or the content itself, isn't it? When you're talking about that, option trading, and that you're actually giving them a strategy and you're telling them this is the strategy and these are the steps to implement the strategy. This is how you would learn from the strategy. And the beauty of the context in which you operate also is that you can go implement and you can see those results. And the beauty of it is, if the results are money making in nature, even more better. Nowhere in the world do you have a set of situations. Okay, I'm watching this app, how a circuit works. Okay, मेरे पास circuit नहीं है.
What do I do next? The amazing thing was, Krishna, we gave out the sample codes also. So what you could do is you could change the parameters. So you don't enter at 920, you enter at 925.
Correct.
And you could run that test for years and see for yourself. So LearnApp isn't teaching. LearnApp just enabled you to reach a point where you could test yourself whether something works or not.
Awesome.
So you don't have to trust LearnApp. You have to trust your ability to read like text on code. And that created everything, I guess.
So to go back to your point, you're actually coaching for ability and not coaching for knowledge.
Yes, that's right.
Huge difference. And I've said this before. Way back when I was 10 years old in India, you still had these job-oriented courses, and I've been talking about that ad nauseum on most of my episodes. Today we have a country where we fancy certificates, and the certificate doesn't tell you jack about your ability to actually do that darn thing, right? So my daughter scored distinction in state level violin, and yesterday, so junior, and so I told her the certificate is for you to tell a certain set of people that you've done something.
Correct.
It is not an indication of your ability to play the violin well.
Yeah.
That can when you are playing the violin crappily, the certificate will do you no good.
Yeah.
I said there are enough people that have done senior and beyond Vidwan in a particular stream in music, and they still don't compose anything new. They don't make any net new additions to music. So I want you to rejoice the moment, but I don't want you to don't rest on your laurels. Go continue to consistently build on your ability and not your certificates. I said, great, put it up. If you feel like it, put it up, but I'd rather you not even put it up the wall. But go develop that ability is what I told her. So fantastic. Any inflection points other than that one in your... So initially, a lot of people bought it, and then how long was this journey of you building that useful content, and then where you started, the graph fell like this, and then it went up again?
Yeah, so I think, I hate to say this, but we launched in August 2018. We didn't figure this out until like a year at least. It took a while, yeah. That sounds horrible, man.
No, it doesn't. A year is a very short time in the life of a startup.
It took a while. And January 2020, that's when things picked up a lot.
Wow.
That's when we figured out, okay, how is this working? What's wrong? What kind of content to build? What should we measure? Etc. So I think that was the time when January started picking up. Then Corona happened. So again, we got lucky, I guess. And everyone where we used to say live, online, webinar, online, on your computer, and we used to write that to explain what an online class was. We just started calling it live class because everyone knew after Corona what an online learning experience is, or online chat is, or Zoom is. So yeah, I think traffic really went up in March and April. And that's when we got a lot of users coming in. Luckily, the stock market was also doing well. So I'm sure if I do a correlation between like LearnApp users and stock market go up, there's some correlation happening over there as well. But I'm sure we'll have more users when the market falls, because that's when it's easy to be a genius in a bull market, right? You can just buy anything and you look like a genius.
You're not a genius in a bull market, you're a pig in a tornado.
So I guess when the market falls, or if it falls, I think it's really expensive right now, but if it falls, a lot of users will have to come back because they've probably burnt their hands. But yeah, I think that was the second inflection point. Like Corona taught people that they can do stuff online. It taught the entire education industry that if you want to solve something at scale, it has to be online. We don't have enough teachers in the country to actually teach everyone. And if you look at IIMs and IITs, etc., I mean, I didn't graduate from school, but I know this, that how many thousand people come out from these universities? Very, very low, right? So how do you do that level at scale? I think LearnApp's ultimate aim of 100 million users, what I told you, finance is obviously just the beginning. But we'll have to do a lot more to master this before we start going horizontal into other subjects. But there's this great example that, Alexander the Great had Aristotle to teach him, which is maybe why and every king had someone to advise him, which is what made them special. But the world needs a digital Aristotle, so the first company which is able to come closer to that, where everyone can get high quality ability and not ability to do something. I think that education company is going to change the world, right? So if you can solve for ability, like you said, and not knowledge, you've actually changed the world. And that's what we're going to try to do in 21. Make the resume irrelevant with this new tool that we're building. I think certificates is like history. No one's tried to update certification. And I think LearnApp will try to do that this year.
Outstanding. And yeah, I think digital Aristotle, or whatever we want to call it, and so many streams. This one aspect, another sort of glossed over detail will be in the cases the stock market is online.
Yeah.
In your case, both the universe in which you are applying the knowledge is online, and the place where you're consuming the knowledge is online. Right? Unlike the olden days, you're not, storming into the well of the exchange and actually shouting the quotes.
Correct.
Right? You're actually doing both of them online. So here, and you extrapolate this to, let's say, there are a lot of online skill assessment platforms, for instance, and you dig a little deeper, they've achieved scale. But if you actually see the place where they've achieved scale, again, is only in programming. Right?
Correct. Because data science is online and they're learning online.
Correct. But we need enough things. In my mind, the true company is where, to a certain extent, we'll definitely need virtual reality, artificial reality plus virtual reality, plus a digital assistant, plus a platform, plus a real world. All of them augmented together. Augmented reality, I think, is possibly the tool that will change, because then all of a sudden the things that you're imagining are very different. And to a great extent, when you have a physical universe in which you need to learn, for instance, let's say you're teaching somebody to lay a road, right? That's an ability. Now the best thing for him to do is actually to lay the road. Right? Now the next best thing is for him to use augmented reality, as opposed to seeing somebody in a video saying, okay, this is how I mix it, this is how I lay it. It doesn't teach him anything. Right? Yeah. In augmented reality, at least before he tries in a low-cost manner, he can do that. I think that's where we are possibly headed next. And we'll need, because there's humongous amount of change that still needs to happen in India. And that will not happen. But EdTech is, I'm just wondering, if it's peaking too early. Like every Olympic athlete, the fundamental difference between an Olympic athlete and a normal athlete many times is not ability. There is also a emotional side of it, right? The emotional side of it is they know when to conserve energy and when to actually expend it.
Right.
And you expend it when you realize that this is the moment where you need to peak, right?
Yeah.
There are lots of everybody that started an edtech company, I think, seems to be doing business right now. Very little of quality assessment is going on. What is this platform doing? What is this platform not doing? And normally you already have a FOMO effect with people. And with the case of Indian parents, they have FOMO all the time. when it comes to their kids. Acha, your kid is doing this. Oh, my kid should also do this. Okay. I use a very basic barometer. I have two children, a daughter and a son. My whole thing is if I am not hearing about a tool in my parent circle, then I really don't value that. Right? Okay. If something is valued at some zillion dollars, I will value it if I hear parents around me come to me and then say, okay, this is making value. But in your case, I think it's awesome. So what's next for what do you see next? You've already talked about extending it beyond videos in that ability building and anything beyond that. Where do you see 5 years from now?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I think 5 years is very far. That's the truth. I think for this year, right, we just do 6 months kya karenge and then next 6 months. But I think there are two major things that we want to do. One is, again, use more data to know how to make this better, get better retention, better all of that, better value for the user. We'll do all that. But to measure our success with the ability of the user, I think that should become. So right now, when people say, what's your scale? They mean how many users, how many subscriptions, and then they'll multiply the number of subscriptions with what you're charging, and that will mean scale, right? So I think the real measure should be how many people didn't have an ability in month 1 and have this amazing ability by month 3, and how do you know that ability is amazing, right? Were they able to get a better job? Were they able to earn more? Were they happier? Like, what happened with that ability? And if they can do it all on your platform or on the LearnApp platform, obviously, then what does that look like? So all this practice that we see that we do right now in live classes, we switch on our cameras, our mics, and we say, okay, do this in front of me. And if they do it, we say it's passed. There has to be a digital equivalent of that, which is what we're building right now. So I think that I have a lot of hopes on that, because I feel once people start building something, imagine, Krishna, you land on LearnApp, you've never, say you pick investing or trading or even business studies or right? And in the first 5 minutes, you're able to solve a very mini problem with an actual company. And you see a tick mark over there. And then you go on to a video, and then you maybe pick a bunch of stocks in 2010, and then it fast forwards 2020, and you realize what portfolio creation is without actually learning it, just by seeing real data. That would be amazing, right? Which is what people call experiential learning, fancy word. But if they can actually learn through experience by making mistakes, and then video is also a part of it, right? And I'm sure next year when I talk to you, I'll say, oh, all this is important, and this is also important, but we need to have VR, and this experiential learning is also a part of it. So we might zoom out a little more and then zoom out more. But I think right now, what EdTech is trying to prove to the world is they go online, you can learn. That's it. We are very nascent, right? I think just the first step is, online you can learn. I think that was sort of, people believe that sort of in 2021. What's the next step? So I think we'll work on that this year.
What's on your reading list?
Oh, what's on my reading list? Oh, man. I'm reading a book on marketing, 21 Immutable Laws of Marketing. That was good. I finished Range recently. That was nice.
Outstanding.
Yeah, because I think I'm a generalist, so I could relate to it.
Echo chamber.
What?
Echo chamber.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, yeah, I believe in this. That's why it's good. So I think Range was nice. I'm reading another book. I forgot the name of it now. But yeah, I think nowadays in the morning I'm reading Zen Pencils. I don't know if you've heard of it.
No, I haven't.
But you should. I think everyone listening to this should now Google Zen Pencils immediately and start reading it. It'll change your life. It's amazing. But I usually read 3 or 4 books at a time, actually. I'm reading one book on product management called The Build Trap right now also. So I have 3 places where I read these books. Yeah. One in the toilet, one on my desk, and one before I sleep. And I read them all simultaneously. Oh, the 4th book is Naval's book. So Naval Ravikant's, someone compiled all of Naval's thoughts in a book. So I thought that was, I'm reading that. That's pretty interesting too. So, and finally one on copywriting actually. So, yeah.
You should read Alchemy by Rory Susskind.
Alchemy by Rory. What is it about?
Yeah, the power of ideas that don't make sense.
Oh, that sounds interesting. That hooked me.
Outstanding book. Outstanding. It's so amazing. So I think in India it has a different title, but overseas I think it's called Alchemy. So that's fantastic. So we've discussed a lot about do's and don'ts, but I'll still ask the customary closing question. For people that are starting up right now or in the midst of something, wherever they are, what would be your 2 words of wisdom?
Start. The biggest mistake we make is we get into analysis paralysis and just make a plan and then try to dive deeper into plan. Imagine that your plan will have 30, 40 iterations. So if you delay launching your first step of your plan a year from now, imagine when the 30th iteration will happen. Most likely you would have run out of money. Start, iterate, and that's your edge. Not marketing, not copywriting, not a fancy product or software. All of this is hogwash. Iteration is what makes you king. Just build and just keep building every day as fast as you can. We made that mistake. Please don't.
Outstanding. Prateek, I've thoroughly enjoyed the conversation that we've had. I think your experience comes through in everything that you've spoken about today. I'm not amazed, even for a minute, that you've built the kind of. I've used LearnApp myself, although I'm not a subscriber, but I've seen the different kind of content that you created and the depth with which it can only be possible if you spend this much amount of time in that, right? So I know you'll scale greater heights. When you scale the next peak, Maharajas of scale will come back to you and speak to you to see what the vantage point is, what's the view like from that vantage point. And we wish you the very best. Keep rocking.
Thank you.
We hope you enjoyed this story. If this story made a difference to you, tell us by leaving a comment on the website or our social media channels. Help us spread the love by subscribing, liking, and sharing our show. We welcome speaker suggestions and collaboration. Write to me at tanya@maharajasofscale.com.